name is Jason Gilstrap, Superintendent of Schools, and I am excited to see all of you here this evening. Obviously, the reason why we get together is unfortunate, but I'm excited to see you, and we're anxious to listen to what you have to say. Those of you that are aware of our strategic plan, we did have tonight reserved for a strategic planning meeting with our community, and we just felt like it was very important due to recent events in Valley that we shift that. And it was important for us to listen, which is why we're here this evening. So if we have time at the end, we'll go into our strategic plan. But if not, that's okay. We can reschedule it. 2 weeks ago, the incident that took place in Valley is truly a tragedy. And obviously, it's a tragedy for those families, for that community, for that district. And we want to make sure that we represent that. We want to make sure we respect that. And obviously, as a community, we've been down that road. So I want to open up, first of all, with just a moment of silence for those students and those teachers as a part of that tragedy. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. You know, we talk about thoughts and prayers. People say that. Sometimes people get frustrated with that, but you know what? Sometimes that's what's needed. And sometimes that's what we need to hear if we've been a part of that. And as a community, Floresville and the district, we've experienced tragedy. And we don't ever want to compare things. However, we were able to provide some direct support to that community as a result of some of the things we've been through. And so we've been able to provide counseling support directly to them. We sent 4 to 5 counselors every day to Uvalde to assist their families and their community and their staff, their students, and they were able to benefit from some of our tragic experiences. Also, we've been able to provide communication expertise. Kim Cathy's had an opportunity to go there and work with their department. They've obviously had a lot of headlines and a lot of news people there, and so she's been able to assist them in how to push that message out and make sure that they're communicating well. As a community, we've provided indirect support. Individuals have sent money, we've sent clothes, our community has reached out to them to meet needs as they need those. They request from the Regional Service Center or from Bexar County, and we're able to support them indirectly as well. So thank you to our community. Something that we're able to provide, sometimes that's an experience that's a true tragedy, but we're able to support others through that experience. So thank you for being a part of that. So this evening, what we want to do annually, every year, we do an evaluation of our safety and security. And sometimes that becomes routine. And obviously this year, it's got a lot more focus to it. It's got a lot more scrutiny to it. And that's what we want to do tonight. So for this evening, we don't have a presentation. It's not a question and answer session. We want to hear from you. We want to listen to what your concerns are and what you feel like we need to know as we evaluate our emergency operation plan, our procedures, and we want to make sure that we're focusing in on those things and incorporating those into our operation plan. So that's the purpose of tonight's meeting, or at least the first part of it. And so we do have an opportunity for you to speak, and we'll lay that out in just a second. The other thing that you would find back there in the back of the table, the signing table, is a front and back sheet. So several emails came through, obviously immediately, from community members, from parents with toddlers who are just coming into school next year, and they have questions. What do y'all do? What do you do? Do you lock the door? Is there a police officer on every campus? Multiple questions that come up. And so we felt like it was important to put this together. And this is just a brief synopsis of some of the things that we have in place. Understand that a portion of our operation plan is kept confidential for legitimate reasons. But what you have there are things that we do, that people see, that we make sure and we practice every day to the best of our ability. You know, sometimes our biggest problem is ourselves. So we can have procedures in place, but we've got to make sure we're holding ourselves accountable for that. And that's part of what we want to make sure we continue to do. So that's what that information sheet is there for. It's just kind of a brief thing of the procedures that we have in place as a district moving forward. We want to add to that. We want to review it. We also scrutinize it, not just annually, but we do it all the time, but annually, we're going to make sure we get together and review what our procedures are. How can we modify it? How can we make it better to provide the safest environment possible, to make it a safer place? Because I will go ahead and tell you, I cannot make it safe. All right? But we can make it safer. We can put things in place to make sure that we are doing everything we can to prevent those things from happening. And sometimes what we do are preventative measures, and sometimes, unfortunately, they are response measures. And how we respond is also a part of our plan. All right? So we make sure that we are coordinating with the city, with the county, and obviously I've already had meetings with those people, and we are making sure that we're continuing those meetings. All right? That's a huge piece, is that response piece. But also we want to be proactive in what we do. But unfortunately, we don't know how good those measures are at times. So we want to make sure we listen to what you have to say this evening. We did have a sign-up sheet. I think we've got a few people that have signed up to speak. So whenever your name is called, Ms. Petrie over here, you'll come over to the table, and we'll allow you 2 minutes to speak. And once that alarm goes off, I'm just going to ask that in the interest of time, that we make sure we move on to the next one. And we'll go from there. All right? So again, thank you for being here. What you do, and obviously you entrust us with your most valuable possession, and that's your children. And that is not a responsibility that we take lightly. That falls on my shoulders as superintendent. That falls on the shoulders of our school board, and it is not something that we take lightly. We want to make sure you know that. All right? So I want to turn it over to Alyssa, and she will announce our first name.
Dawn Barnett. You want me to come over there to talk, or?
Yes, please, if you don't mind. That way we can hear you on mic.
Okay. Can y'all hear me? So I had an incident at the high school, the second to last day of school. I went to pick my daughter up early. As I walked up the ramp, there was a person that walked up behind me as well. So of course I show my ID to get in the building, and I turn around and tell him, I'm sorry, but you need to check in. He says, well, I'm a student. Well, I'm not going to argue with him. So he came into the building with me. I went straight to the office. He went straight in the office and walked around me and went to the back. So I asked the lady up front, I said, what as a parent, when we're put in that situation, what are we supposed to do? Do we stop that person and make them check in? Do we let them in with us? She said, oh, if he was a student, they can come and go as they please. Well, how was I supposed to know that's a student, number one? We don't have student IDs, am I correct? None of our kids have student IDs. So I feel that that's definitely a safety issue that needs to be addressed. As a parent, I don't want to let the person in behind me without them showing their ID and saying why they're there. But on another note, I don't want to cause a problem either.
Next is Colleen Gamble.
Thank you. I share that same concern. My child attends Floresville North Elementary, and I have been in the exact same scenario. So when you're at the door and now there's a buildup at the door, what do? You don't want to be rude. We're all taught to, go ahead, you know. And then the other thing that I wanted to say, having recently had a child at Hope Elementary and also being working here, I understand that they have a contract with Wilson County Sheriff's Office, but large presence there. When you drive there, you see police vehicles. When you're there during the day, you see people actively walking around and monitoring. My child would come home and say, I saw police officers at school. And since my child's been at Floresville North, I haven't seen police vehicles parked out front. And I know that that's just an appearance, but it's a police vehicle parked out front, which is reassuring. And when I've gone to pick up my child for a dental appointment or taken her, I haven't seen my police officer, my campus's police officer. I wouldn't know that person and how to greet them, and it would just make me feel better if could we hire more staff? Is there funding for more? Is there a more robust option? You know, because when you're there at that campus, I get it, they're all housed in one spot, but you get to see officers regularly. And I'm worried because at Floresville North, we're out there. We're way out there. How fast are these officers going to get there if they need help? If there's one officer there, but I agree with the previous speaker that there needs to be some sort of protocol because we do stack up. And I'm not comfortable turning to a man and saying, you wait, that's not mine, thank you.
Now we have Jamie Hahn.
I'm a teacher at the high school, and at the beginning of the year, I think we had a lockdown. And I had a student tell me, Ms. Hahn, these lockdowns are pointless because most of the time a shooter, I got a high school, is a student. They know the drills, they know what we do, they know that we're all sitting in this room, hiding behind this wall. It doesn't make sense. And I've had students tell me, if it comes down to it, sorry, I love you, I'm pushing you out of the way, and I'm out the door. And later that day, I was standing in the hall and during a passing period, and I was watching, and it kind of dawned on me that our lockdown drills at the high school, and I know when I was at North, I don't know how it is now, they are done in a very controlled situation. When all the kids are in class, we have a lockdown. And I had suggested one time, and I don't remember who it was, what administrator, and I said, we should do these during passing periods. Because, I could never think like someone who would come into a school and do that, but you want to affect the most people, especially someone knows the high school, for example. Those hallways are packed during passing periods, at lunchtime, things like that. And when I was told that would be really hard logistically to do, well, it would be. But I think that's important. I think we need to steer away a little bit from the control drills and treat them more in a situation that if it were to really happen. I mean, it may be a case if you're grabbing kids out of the hallway and getting them in your classroom, but we need to do that instead of just keep practicing the same safe, controlled environment that we've been doing.
And the last one is Candace Heller.
Good evening. I'm Candace Heller. I have a 13-year-old here at Floresville Middle School. My 19-year-old went to the high school here. I have concerns, questions, just to know what are the policies, the procedures, if there's a threat. My son received a threat this past school year and was told that another young man in school was going to bring a gun and shoot him. And when I got the call to tell me about that, I was told that my son would not see that child for a long, long time. That's basically what I was told. And 3 days later, my son saw him in the hall. There's a lot of fighting and bullying, and I can't even imagine what the staff and the teachers go through, but I'm amazed and appalled at just the lack of respect and dignity that our kids are sharing on each other every single day. And so that's a concern. And I've told my son he loves school, but I've said in no uncertain terms, I have no problem homeschooling him. His dad and I are retired Air Force, and I'm like, okay, Dad will be the teacher because he was in the education field. But I have concerns about what are the typical policies, the protocol, because when I'm told he won't see someone who made a specific threat, which was very, unsettling to me, he expressed that he saw that person. And so within a week, he saw the same kid, and so that's really unsettling. And I just would like to know more about, like I said, the policies and the protocol to expect as a parent. I'm very clear, obviously, as military retirees, we tell them, you don't joke about it, I don't care if you think it's a joke, because that was the comment, that's the common thread. Well, everybody, it was a joke. Well, I don't know that, you don't know that, but that's kind of the common theme. And so, how do we really increase that? What kind of speakers or things can you bring in for the kids who are going through this stuff every single day? And it's horrible. Thank you.
Sorry about that, sir.
If you don't mind just signing up there.
Oh, my name is Juan Naranjo. I got a son at the North Elementary School. So I was listening to some of the parents here, these little speeches you were saying, and it got me thinking. At the end of the school year, we had this bike rodeo at North. And when my wife and I walked up there, the doors were wide open, and the police officers were actually helping in the bike rodeo. That's kind of discouraging, because this happened in Uvalde at the very end of the school year. So, I'm not saying we need to stop stuff like that, but a little extra security at that point, the police officers should be doing their job, not the teacher's job in the rodeo, taking all that stuff down. So, that's one of the things we saw. In reference to this young lady, we're talking about drills. I'm a retired Navy. I don't know if there's retired Navy in here or not. When we're out to sea, we have this thing called general quarters. We don't practice it. They don't tell us right away we're gonna have it. We're just walking along, and next thing you know, the bells go off, and we're at general quarters. Everything gets locked down. We get ready for that. We get tested on time. How fast can we man that aircraft? How fast can we get up on the deck? And how fast can we set anchor? Because during wartime, you don't have time to think. So this is a proposal. And I know it's kind of out there, but if we can come up with some kind of drill where the teachers don't know except as principals, and maybe the vice principal, the higher administrator, where there's an active shooter, and it's drilled, and you go through it and start testing our teachers and our administrators how fast they can react. And time. And the schools with the best times, I don't know, win a trophy or something. That's just, it's a safety thing. But at the same time, we're protecting our children. And, they're our future. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you to those that did want to speak. I will say this, there may be some in the room that don't feel comfortable speaking in front of others, but I still want you to express those concerns. We can take these things to our safety committee as we start to adjust our procedures. We'll look at drills and how we conduct drills and our responses to those drills. So we listen to those, and that's what we're here for tonight. I will say my email address, I did not bring my card, if you'd like to jot it down, jgilstrap1@fisd.us. It's on the website. Feel free to email me your concern if you want to, or if you want to set up a meeting with me, I'll be glad to meet with you and discuss any concerns that you have. Again, we want to listen to you, we want to hear what those concerns are, because the smartest person in the room is the room. And so if you've got those concerns, then we want to be able to somehow come up with a solution or an answer to try to address that concern that you may identify. I talk to students all the time. High school students in particular don't meet as much with elementary kids, just high school and middle school kids they can verbalize a little bit more, a little more mature. But I ask those kids all the time, what is your biggest concern? What are your hopes and dreams? What can we do to improve? And one of the things I talk to them about is safety. And obviously I don't want to go into the things that they bring to me, but they bring real life to me. They bring just like the parent at the front door. That's a real life experience. And that's something we can look at, is how we, not only the procedure we have for that, but how do we communicate that to our parents? How do we communicate that to our community whenever we have those events and those situations? So we do want to make sure we take that into consideration. I will say, if anybody would like the opportunity, I will, at this time, if you'd like to come over and sign up, we'd love to hear from you we'll give you 2 minutes as well.
What do you need from us, as parents?
You know, that is something that comes up a lot too. What can we do? First one is, and I say this, and it's going to come out. By the way, we will have changes for next year. Some of those changes you're going to see as a parent and a community and as a staff member. Some of those changes are part of our operation plans, which are confidential, and it may be a part of how we respond. But the biggest things you can do is see something, say something. Listen to your kids. If they come home and they express a concern about an incident, let us know about it. We need to be able to investigate that and address it in a timely manner. All right? So if you see something or hear something, we need to know about it. We can put measures in place. And example, a gate. We put a gate out there. Somebody says, well, somebody just drive right around that. If you see somebody driving around the gate, you saw something. You need to say something. All right? But if the gate wasn't there and somebody just drove down through there, well, you didn't see anything, so you don't know whether or not to say anything. So that's the most important thing, is to make sure you're communicating with us whenever your children have those issues. And listen to us. Don't ignore them. Don't say kids are going to be kids. Make sure you're responding to that and letting us know so that we can properly investigate that and get students the help that they need. As listed on there, we have crisis intervention teams. We have threat assessment committee. We have all these different interventions to try to intervene for students that may have an outcry. All right? And we're working with community members to get outside help. We also work with families and parents whenever those incidents come up, and our administrators as well. So we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to address that. Again, thank you for being here. It is a testament to this community and this district for how many people come out for the situation. And know this, as I said, we do this every year, we evaluate. But this year there's a little heightened level of emotion with it. This year there's a little more scrutiny on it. So I understand. You know, some people say, well, where were all these people last year whenever we reviewed this? Well, understand that this is how people work. People are going to have that heightened sense of value in it and that importance to it. But what we have to do is sustain that. I hear people talk about it. I've had some parents email me and said, hey, what about this program or that program? I'll come up there and volunteer. Wonderful. We will take that and we're going to develop some ideas over the summer to implement some of those volunteer programs to get parents and get adults up here to help monitor. But I hate to say this, what happens is we get to September, October, and it's like pulling teeth to get people to show up to this organized thing that everybody was volunteering for at first. And that's human nature, so I'm not neglecting that. I'm not saying that that's not important, but it has to be sustainable. We have to do it on day one, just like we do the last day of school. And that's what we have to look at, is that sustainability of the options that we put in. So be on the lookout for those opportunities to participate and be ready when needed. If we need to get volunteers to open doors, you know, there's programs for moms and dads at the door, all these different, they're nationwide programs, but we can bring those in. But the most important thing is I got to have participation in it because it's great. I love to have parents up here. I love to see you know, dads up there in the school giving kids high five in the morning as they're getting off the bus. Because so many times, the kid getting off the bus, the only person they've interacted with all morning is the bus driver. And I say this all the time, and so I'll get on my soapbox for a second. The most two valuable positions in a school district, one is the special ed teacher, because they are working with some really special needs kids. You have to have a hard goal, and it's a calling from God to be able to do that job day in and day out. The other one is a bus driver. If you don't think you don't have a relationship with a kid, you put 40 of them on a bus and you're going 70 miles an hour and turn you back. All right, you got to have a relationship with those kids. And so many times, that's what I tell those bus drivers. You say good morning to that kid, maybe the first time they've heard it all day, and you telling them goodbye at the end of the day, and have a good evening, that may be the most positive interaction they have outside of our schools. And that's unfortunate. But having those adults there to volunteer and welcome those kids to school is invaluable. So not only does it build their self-esteem, not only does it check with them emotionally to make sure they know that they're loved for and cared, it also puts eyes out there to protect our kids and our campuses. And that's invaluable as well. And they don't know that. They just see somebody give them a high five and they appreciate that. So again, be on the lookout for those opportunities. If you see something, please say something. We have anonymous tip lines that are available. I think they're listed on that as well. We also have regular tip lines through Crime Stoppers. You can also email me, email your principal. Please just let us know whenever those concerns come up so that we can properly address those in a timely manner. All right? What I want to do now is we do want to transition over to our strategic plan meeting. Do we have any more? Oh, I'm sorry. Here you go. I'll even let you stand.
This is a little different now. It doesn't involve middle school or high school. My granddaughter, kindergarten this year, and more than once, I went to pick her up. And I had her in the car, and I'm getting ready to leave, and they're pulling over the car, and they're getting the other children. I'm getting the other children. And I'm telling people, that's not my child. I've got my child in the car, that's it. If they would just be a little bit more careful watching when the babies get in the cars, because a couple of those kids started climbing the car with me. Maybe they didn't know who was supposed to pick them up. But this is child safety, making sure the children get in the cars correctly. Because I would not want my granddaughter going home with somebody that she did not belong with.
My question was, I know that there's a thing, they run around again. What's the training for the local police department? Like tap times, you know, work now, do they do executions in the schools, to be like, how fast can you get in and out? Like, where the windows at, where the locks at, you know, how things you use to the problem involved. They know where the locks are at, they know what the master keys are at. So how often does that happen?
So again, tonight is not a Q&A session, so I don't want to give a direct response to that. But I will say on this bill that we do have active training between the county, the city, and our school district police officers. They train for active shooter drills in our schools. They do that. They did that once this past year. They're also scheduling that in the future. You have been communicated about that. Because we have to communicate that ahead of time, otherwise people start calling 911 because all these police officers are at the high school. Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you repeat what you stated? We didn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay. She was asking about what is the relationship or how do we train local law enforcement in their response? Do they know our buildings? Do they know where the doors are, the keys, the windows, all the different parts of our building? She was asking about how we train them, how we work with them.
If I may, I have a question from a parent who couldn't make it tonight, and I'll find. Protest teachers that carry weapons, is that an option for our teachers? What about signs stating that teachers carry? Would that help it? We need more middle school assistants in the morning. As a parent, I have seen children fighting, playing in the road with sports equipment and running through the parking lot. And this particular parent is saying that her husband would go ahead and help out if need be. So I guess we can reach out to her and let her know, reach out to you.
She'll just make sure they get signed up. All right, we do want to transition over to our strategic planning session. Part of our strategic plan and one of our beliefs is about safety and security. It has been and it continues to be. In fact, I believe when we show this in a minute, it's number one. And we want to focus on that. Part of that strategic plan is what the district overall believes, and here's what we do. And we had this strategic plan for the past 5 years, and now this is kind of our last year of that, so we're revisiting that as we look to the future moving forward. And so this ties into that, because what we do is driven by what our beliefs are. And you'll find that part of our beliefs are about making sure we create that safe environment. So you are more than welcome to stay. We're going to take a couple of minutes to get the screen set up, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lloyd Graham, and I will do an introduction to him in just a minute. But you're more welcome to stay. We do have food and drinks in the back, so I encourage you to please take food and drinks. Thank you very much again for being here.